What does loyalty earn you after a quarter century of devotion? I stood in the sleek conference room of Franklin and Associates, the Boston skyline glinting through floor-to-ceiling windows, and felt the weight of that question settle like frost. At 45, Ellie Thompson, had sculpted a career as Senior Director of Client Relations, believing my work was woven into the firm's very foundation. But today, Dominic Hayes, the newly minted managing partner, sat across the polished mahogany table, his eyes cool and unyielding, ready to unravel everything I'd built. His words were about to change my life, and I had no inkling of the storm they would unleash. The meeting began with a clinical precision that chilled me. Dominic, his suit crisp and his demeanor polished, leaned forward, hands clasped. Ellie, we're overhauling client relations. Today will be your final day. The statement hung in the air, sharp and unapologetic. Beside him, Janice from HR shifted, her attempt at a sympathetic smile faltering. My pulse quickened, but my voice emerged steady, honed by years of navigating high-stakes conversations. Was this Arthur's decision, I asked? Invoking Arthur Franklin, the founder who'd hired me 25 years ago, Dominic's jaw tightened, a flicker of unease betraying his composure. All partners were consulted. He replied, his vagueness deliberate. Arthur had been in London for weeks, spearheading our European expansion. I doubted he'd signed off on this. Dominic slid a manila folder toward me, its edges pristine against the table's gleam. This is a business decision, not personal, he said. The phrase rehearsed. The severance package includes 2 months' salary and benefits through the quarter. Janice nodded, her eyes fixed on the folder, avoiding mine. The restructuring affects multiple departments, she added, her tone aiming for reassurance but landing hollow. It's not about your performance. But how could it not be? I'd shaped client relations into the firm's cornerstone, managing accounts worth over $10 million annually. At 45, my salary reflected that expertise, but so did my results client retention rates that outpaced competitors. Was that the issue? A cost too high for Dominic's efficiency charts? I sat back, the leather chair creaking softly, and let the reality sink in. After 25 years, I was being discarded. My contributions reduced to a line item, best wishes for your next chapter. Dominic added, his smile as warm as a winter gust. Security will assist with your belongings, standard procedure. The irony stung. I'd drafted those procedures a decade ago, never imagining they'd apply to me. At my desk, a young security guard hovered, his discomfort palpable as I packed. A photo from a charity gala with Catherine Winters, our biggest client, went into the box. Alongside a crystal paperweight from my 20th anniversary, my phone buzzed. Catherine's name flashed. Ellie, heard about changes at F&A. Quarterly review next week. Call me. My gaze drifted to Dominic's glass-walled office, where he was already on the phone, likely spinning the narrative. He didn't grasp what he'd severed trust, built over decades, that couldn't be reassigned like a spreadsheet. As the elevator descended, the guard silent beside me, I felt the weight of 25 years meetings, late nights, client triumphs slipping away, but a spark of clarity flickered. Franklin and Associates wasn't just a firm. It was a network of relationships I'd nurtured. Dominic's restructuring had cut me loose, but he'd underestimated the ripples. Catherine's message was the first wave. I stepped into the Boston chiller, box in hand, and sensed the tide turning. The firm thought they'd streamlined their future. They were about to learn what they'd lost. In 1998, Franklin and Associates was a scrappy outfit on half a floor of a Back Bay brownstone, with 17 clients and a founder brimming with vision, Arthur Franklin. Then 42, hired me, a 20-year-old fresh from college, because he saw hunger in my eyes. Business runs on numbers. Ellie, he told me over coffee, his British accent crisp. But relationships are its soul. That creed became my compass. While others chased billable hours or corner offices, I built trust, remembering clients' anniversaries, their children's graduations, and their strategic quirks. By my 20th anniversary, Arthur called me the architect of our success, crediting my work for transforming the firm into a $50 million consultancy. That was before the shift began. 2 years ago, external investors arrived, their sights on rapid growth. With them came Dominic Hayes, a Wharton grad with slick slides and a mantra of maximum value extraction. His arrival marked a fracture. Employee turnover spiked 40%. The open plan office buzzing with unease. I watched our client-first ethos erode, replaced by Dominic's obsession with performance metrics. In executive meetings, I flagged a 15% dip in client retention, urging a return to personalized service. Dominic's response was a curt dismissal. The market's evolving. Ellie, legacy processes are holding us back. Legacy. The word stung. A subtle jab at my 25 years of institutional knowledge. I should have seen the signs earlier. 6 months ago, I noticed my exclusion from key strategy sessions. Emails looped out junior staff instead of me. And Melissa Bennett, a brash newcomer, was assigned to accounts I'd managed for a decade. My portfolio, including Catherine Winter's $4 million account, drove 60% of our revenue, yet Dominic sidelined me. His efficiency models blind to the human element. Last week, I overheard him on a call, his voice low but cutting. Restructuring trims the legacy fat. Retirement plans like hers cost millions. The words landed like a blade. I wasn't nearing retirement. But to Dominic, my experience was a liability, not an asset. Back in 1998, Arthur's vision had been clear outshine competitors by prioritizing clients over profit margins. I'd embodied that, tailoring strategies to each client's needs, detailed reports for some, big picture summaries for others. My desk held relics of that era, thank you notes, a framed photo from a client's merger celebration, but Dominic's regime valued dashboards over handshakes. As I sat in my apartment 3 days after my firing, those memories clashed with the present. My phone glowed with notifications, clients reaching out. Unaware of Dominic's misstep, I'd believed loyalty shielded me, that my $10 million portfolio was armor. I was wrong. But as I scanned another message from a client, I realized the firm's error ran deeper. They'd cut me. But the relationships I'd built weren't theirs to reassign. Arthur's words echoed. Relationships were the soul. Dominic had gambled on numbers. And I was about to see how poorly he'd calculated. 3 days after my unceremonious exit from Franklin and Associates, my Boston apartment felt like a command center under siege. My laptop glowed with job board tabs, each a reminder of the career I'd thought unassailable. While my phone buzzed with a cadence that refused to relent, notifications piled up LinkedIn connections, former colleagues' texts, and, most strikingly, clients. Catherine Douglas from Archer Pharmaceuticals sent a terse email. Ellie, is it true you're gone? We need to talk. Belinda at Summit Financial followed, her message laced with concern. Heard unsettling rumors. Call when you can. These weren't outreach efforts I'd initiated. I'd been too disciplined, too raw, to stir the pot. Yet the industry's grapevine was alive, and word of my dismissal was spreading like wildfire across Boston's tight-knit consulting circles. The landline's ring jolted me an anomaly in an era of smartphones. Arthur Franklin's name flashed on the caller ID, a name I hadn't expected so soon. Ellie, I just landed from London, he said, his voice taut with strain. This wasn't my call. I was blindsided. Relief flickered, but anger surged hotter. He hadn't authorized my firing, yet it had happened under his watch. Dominic said all partners agreed. I replied, my tone measured but pointed. Arthur's frustration crackled through the line. They waited until I was buried in EU regulations. The executive committee pushed it as an emergency to boost quarterly numbers. I let his words settle. The sting of my security escort still fresh. 25 years. Arthur and I got a 10-minute meeting and a guard. I said quietly. His silence was heavy, broken only by a firm, you deserved better. Let me fix this. Come back, Chief Client Officer. Reporting to me. The offer tempted, but Dominic's phrase, legacy fat, echoed. My effectiveness was already undermined in their eyes. Before I could respond, another client message pinged. Westridge Manufacturing's executive team wanted a call. Their tone urgent. I glanced at my phone as Arthur continued, his voice faltering. Dominic reassigned your accounts to Melissa Bennett, including Winter's Healthcare. A dry laugh escaped me. Melissa's abrasive style had clashed spectacularly with Catherine Winters last year, her blunt presentation alienating a client who valued nuance. Good luck, I muttered, knowing Catherine's loyalty ran deeper than contracts. Arthur's pause told me he sensed the misstep. But he pressed on. How are clients reacting, he asked. I sidestepped, unwilling to fuel his panic yet. They're reaching out, I said simply, letting the implication linger. A courier's knock interrupted my thoughts. The thick envelope bore Catherine Goldstein's name, Boston's premier headhunter. Her handwritten note was direct Ellie, words out about F&A. Firms are circling for your client base. Dinner tomorrow. The offers inside outlined roles with salaries dwarfing my old pay, a testament to my network's value. I set the letter down, my mind racing. Dominic's restructuring had assumed clients were tethered to the firm's brand. Not to me, but these messages 5 by noon, 11 by dusk proved otherwise. I hadn't contacted a single client, yet their loyalty was surfacing, unprompted, like a tide pulling away from Franklin's shore. That evening, Catherine Winters called, her voice sharp with efficiency. Ellie, tell me you haven't been let go. I poured coffee, steadying myself. It's true. Catherine, they're calling it restructuring. Her scoff was audible. Nonsense. Melissa Bennett emailed, claiming she's my new manager. She tried lecturing me on my business model last year. I chose my words carefully. Professionalism my shield. The firm believes this serves their clients, I said, pausing. Catherine cut through. We've worked together for 12 years. Ellie, I'd rather follow you. Our contract ends in 60 days. Her trust, unyielding, was a lifeline. As I hung up, I realized the firm's calculus had failed. They'd severed me, but the relationships I'd cultivated were mine, and they were speaking louder than any severance package. The next evening, I sat across from Catherine Goldstein at a Back Bay restaurant, its amber lighting softening the weight of our conversation. She studied me over her glasses, her gaze sharp as she slid a folder across the table. 3 firms want you. Ellie, she said, her voice low but deliberate. 2 are crafting roles just for your client base. The proposals inside stunned me. Salaries nearly double my Franklin and Associates pay. One offering a $300 signing bonus. They're not just buying your skills, Catherine explained, sipping her wine. They're investing in your connections. The irony was rich. The firm had deemed me too costly. Yet competitors saw my network as a goldmine. I kept my expression neutral. But a quiet thrill stirred. Dominic's cost-cutting had opened a door he hadn't anticipated. By noon the next day, industry blogs were buzzing with reports of Franklin and Associates' woes. Client dissatisfaction mounts as key accounts waver. One headline read, my former assistant, Thomas, texted updates Winters stormed out of a meeting. Archer's reviewing options. The firm was unraveling, and I hadn't lifted a finger. Arthur's call came as I skimmed Blackwell Consulting's proposal, their equity partnership resonating with the client-first ethos I'd once championed. Ellie, meet me at Harvest. 1-0, he urged. His tone edged with urgency. Curiosity outweighed my reluctance. At the restaurant, Arthur's face was drawn, the lines deeper than I remembered. Dominic's obstructing my efforts to bring you back, he admitted, leaning forward. He's convinced the board your exit is modernization. I sipped my water, letting him stew. And the clients I asked? He shifted uncomfortably. Catherine Winters wants a full executive meeting. 3 smaller accounts have already left. Arthur's pitch came swiftly. Chief Client Officer, Ellie. Better pay. Direct to me. Not Dominic. On paper, it was a dream role, but his eyes betrayed fear, not sincerity. What's the real issue? Arthur, I pressed. He hesitated, then confessed. Dominic's rallying partners to forcing my early retirement. If clients keep leaving, he'll use it to oust me. The truth landed heavily. Arthur wasn't saving me. He was saving himself. I leaned back, the clink of cutlery filling the silence. I'm sorry, Arthur, I said, my voice steady. I have meetings with other firms. It's business, not personal. His flinch at Dominic's echoed phrase was almost satisfying, a mirror to my betrayal. Blackwell Consulting's offer lingered in my mind as I left Harvest. Their mid-sized firm, with a $20 million portfolio, echoed Arthur's original vision relationships over metrics. Their equity stake promised influence I'd never had at Franklin and Associates. Despite my $10 million accounts, Thomas texted again. Westridge is shopping for competitors. The firm's collapse was accelerating, and I felt the weight of choice. Blackwell offered a clean slate, a chance to carry my clients to a healthier culture. Yet Franklin and Associates, crumbling under Dominic's hubris, still held the relationships I'd nurtured. I hadn't sought revenge, but the tide was turning in my favor. As I walked through Boston's crisp air, my phone buzzed another client, another crack in the firm's foundation. I didn't need to act. The value I'd built was speaking for itself, and I was ready to shape what came next. The morning after my lunch with Arthur, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. The Boston Business Journal's name flashing across the screen. I steadied myself, sensing a shift in the air. Ellie Thompson speaking. I said, my voice calm despite the pulse in my throat. Jeffrey Hammond, a reporter, cut straight to the point. I'm covering leadership changes at Franklin and Associates. 7 major clients have announced plans to leave, and your name keeps surfacing. Care to comment? 7. The number jolted me. Though I'd spoken to 15 clients since my firing, none explicitly cutting ties. I can't speak to client decisions. I replied, cautious of my severance's non-disparagement clause. Many factors influence consulting partnerships. Jeffrey pressed on, typing audibly. What about the letter from 26 clients demanding Dominic Hayes' removal as managing partner? Shock nearly loosened my grip on the phone. I'm unaware of any letter, I said truthfully, my mind racing. 26 clients, acting in concert. Without my prompting, this was a revolt I hadn't engineered. Arthur's call came an hour later, his voice stripped of its usual polish. Ellie, did you orchestrate this? He demanded, anxiety cracking through. 70% of our clients are threatening to walk. The board's in chaos. Investors want answers. I leaned against my apartment's window. Boston's skyline a distant blur. I haven't contacted a single client. Arthur, I said, letting the truth settle. Maybe they value relationships over cost-cutting. His snap was sharp. This could unravel the firm in weeks. I felt a grim satisfaction. Not in his panic, but in the clarity it brought. What do you want from me? I asked. Come back, he said, with no hesitation. Full equity partner, not just chief client officer. Stabilize this. The offer, once a dream, now felt like a lifeline for him. Not me. I'll have an answer by morning, I told him, glancing at Blackwell Consulting's offer on my desk. Its equity partnership gleaming with promise. Sleep eluded me that night, my apartment's silence amplifying every thought. Returning to Franklin and Associates meant navigating a fractured culture, facing executives who'd watched my exit in silence. Blackwell, conversely, offered a fresh canvas, a $25 million firm where my clients could thrive. By dawn, I dialed Catherine Goldstein, her voice bright despite the early hour. I'm taking Blackwell's offer, I said, adding a condition that drew her delighted laugh. At 8:45, I stepped into Franklin and Associates, the receptionist's eyes widening. Ellie, the all-hands meeting. She stammered. Arthur's expecting me, I replied, striding toward the conference room. Its glass walls brimming with tension. The room was a pressure cooker partners flown in from Chicago, New York. Junior staff lining the walls. Arthur stood at the front, board members flanking him. Dominic's absence conspicuous. My entrance hushed the crowd, relief washing over Arthur's face. Thank you for coming, he began, voice strained. Client concerns have escalated post-staffing changes. His eyes met mine. I'm thrilled to announce Ellie Thompson's return as a full equity partner, leading our new client relations division. Whispers erupted, but Arthur pressed on. The board has also dismissed Dominic Hayes, effective immediately, for misaligning with our client-focused values. The room crackled shock, relief, anticipation. I stepped forward, Thomas's subtle thumbs up steadying me. Thank you, Arthur, I said, pausing as eyes locked on me. I'm grateful for the offer, but I won't be returning. Arthur's face froze. Executives exchanging uneasy glances. I've joined Blackwell Consulting, which, with Horizon Capital, has acquired controlling shares of Franklin and Associates. The room exploded in chatter. Arthur's shock palpable. Transitions begin next week. I continued, voice steady. Blackwell values your client trust and expertise. No layoffs are planned unless efficiency demands it. Arthur approached, voice taut. Ellie, what is this? I met his gaze. It's business. Arthur, Horizon saw an opportunity in your client disruptions. I didn't create this. You did. I exited. My phone buzzing with Catherine Winter's message. Heard. Dinner to discuss Winter's healthcare's future with Blackwell. The elevator doors closed. And I exhaled. The firm's fate was sealed. Not by my hand, but by their own. 6 months later, Blackwell Franklin Consulting hummed from 2 floors of a downtown Boston skyscraper. Its $60 million portfolio a testament to a seamless integration. I sat in my corner office, reviewing financials showing a 23% revenue surge. With 95% of clients staying through the transition, the 3 who'd wavered had returned, drawn by the stability I'd fostered. Arthur, now a shadow of his former self, had accepted a 3-year advisory role, our interactions coolly professional. His failure to champion me lingered. A quiet scar. Dominic. Meanwhile, toiled at a $5 million firm, his name a footnote in Boston's consulting lore. Eclipsed by the chaos he'd ignited, former colleagues trickled in, some anxious, others suddenly effusive, claiming they'd opposed Dominic's cuts. I listened, redirecting them to work, retaining most for their talent. Long overlooked. One afternoon, Arthur requested a meeting, his face etched with regret. You planned this, he accused, voice bitter. I slid a folder across the table, his advisory contract. No. Arthur, you forgot that relationships matter more than growth. Blackwell offered you a role, take it or walk. He stared at the paper, then at me. The weight of his choice is clear. It's yours now. He muttered, not mine. I corrected. I shape, not control. You once knew the difference. A soft knock announced Catherine Winters, her tailored suit as sharp as her smile. Impressive quarterly report, she said, settling into a chair. Boston's still buzzing about your elegant pivot. I smiled faintly. It was a market correction, not a coup. She chuckled. Call it what you will. Ellie, relationships are the currency here. Everything else is scaffolding. Her words echoed my truth. Franklin and Associates had mistaken their strength for brand or strategy, blind to the trust I'd cultivated. Their error had launched me into a role I'd earned, not through vengeance, but through the quiet power of my work. As we left for lunch, Boston streets bustling below, I reflected on the past half year. I hadn't chased retribution. I'd simply stood firm, letting my value speak. The Boston Business Journal's headline, Blackwell Acquires. Franklin amid client exodus buried my name in paragraph 15, a fleeting nod to my partnership, yet the shift was seismic. In weeks, I'd risen from discarded to indispensable, steering a merged firm where relationships, not metrics, reigned. Justice hadn't needed my push. It had found its path, proving that true worth, patiently honed, always finds its voice. My name is Kelly Morgan, and I spent 7 years building an empire that wasn't mine on paper, only to watch my parents hand it to someone who couldn't tell a blueprint from a grocery list. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I was 29 when I walked into Morgan & Company Design Build, armed with an architecture degree and a business minor that my parents thought was nice but unnecessary. The family construction business was surviving, barely. My father, George, still used paper ledgers. My mother, Ellen, chased payments with apologetic phone calls and charm that only worked half the time. We built this from nothing, Dad would say proudly, gesturing at the cluttered office that smelled like sawdust and coffee gone cold. And they had 2 decades of kitchen remodels and deck installations built on blistered hands and missed dinners. But I saw potential they couldn't. Within 6 months, I digitized everything. Contracts went from handshakes to ironclad documents. I built relationships with commercial developers they'd only read about in trade magazines. By year 2, our revenue had tripled. By year 4, we had a staff of 23. I worked 80-hour weeks. I learned construction law at midnight, negotiated with suppliers at dawn, and spent weekends at client sites ensuring every detail matched our reputation. The business became my identity, my purpose, my proof that I was worth something beyond being George Morgan's daughter. Then there was Landon. My younger brother spent his 20s finding himself, which apparently required failing at 2 tech startups, meditating in Thailand for 14 months, and coming home with a man bun and ideas about disrupting the construction paradigm. I didn't resent him. Not at first. "He's creative," Mom would say defensively when Landon missed another project deadline. "He connects with people," Dad would add when I stayed late fixing another client relationship Landon had damaged with his casual approach to professionalism. I told myself it was fine. We were family. Different strengths, same team. Until that Friday afternoon when I found the envelope on my chair. The letterhead was official. The language was cold. Landon Morgan appointed Chief Executive Officer of Morgan & Company, effective immediately. No discussion, no warning, no conversation. My name appeared nowhere in the document. I sat in that back office for 20 minutes, staring at words that rearranged my entire existence. The building hummed around me, phones ringing, contractors laughing in the hallway, the coffee maker gurgling in the break room. Everything continued as if the ground hadn't just opened beneath my feet. I didn't cry. Crying would have meant I was surprised, and some part of me had always known this moment might come. In families like mine, loyalty is currency, but only for some people. For others, it's simply expected. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I went home and opened my laptop with hands that had finally stopped shaking. The company's shared drive glowed on my screen. 5 years of systems I'd built, processes I'd documented, shortcuts only I understood, vendor contacts with notes like, "Call Lisa directly, avoids markup." Client preference files. Henderson likes site visits at 7 a.m., brings his own coffee. Budget templates that had saved us thousands in tracking errors. My institutional knowledge distilled into folders. I backed up my personal files. Then I deleted my contribution from the shared drive. Not the company's documents. Those belonged to Morgan & Company. But my frameworks, my guides, my shortcuts, those belonged to me. What remained was theirs to figure out. Or not. Monday morning, I didn't show up. My phone stayed silent, face down on the kitchen counter while I took the longest shower of my life, then sat on my balcony watching the city wake up without me. It felt like stepping off a treadmill I'd been running on for 7 years. The first call came Tuesday afternoon. Dad's voice on the voicemail was tight, controlled. "Kelly, we need to discuss your absence. This is unprofessional." Unprofessional. The word was a slap. Wednesday. 3 missed calls. Thursday. Silence. Friday. A text message that made my chest tighten. "Hawthorne Properties is pulling out. They want you on the project. Call me." Hawthorne was our entry into luxury commercial builds, a $5 million contract that would have transformed everything. I'd spent 8 months building that relationship, understanding their vision, earning their trust. I texted back one sentence. "Ask your CEO. Isn't that what he's for?" The response came an hour later. "This isn't a game, Kelly." But it wasn't a game to me either. It was my life, my work, my worth. All of it dismissed with a title handed to someone who'd never earned it. Saturday morning, Mom called. Her voice had that syrupy quality she used when smoothing over conflict. "Sweetheart, you've made your point. Let's have dinner Sunday. Just family. We need to talk about this like adults." Like adults. As if I was a child throwing a tantrum rather than a professional responding to betrayal. But I agreed. I needed to see their faces, to understand if they even grasped what they'd done. Sunday arrived cold and gray. I pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly 6 p.m., watching the warm light spill from the windows. Inside, I could hear laughter. Dad's booming voice, glasses clinking. They were celebrating something. Landon opened the door, his expression carefully neutral. "Hey, Kel." I walked past him without responding. The dining room smelled like Mom's pot roast, the table set with the good china they reserved for important occasions. Dad sat at the head, flipping through a leather notebook. Mom bustled in the kitchen, her apron printed with sunflowers. It looked like every family dinner we'd ever had, except everything that had changed. "Let's eat first," Mom suggested brightly, setting down a platter. "Then we can discuss everything calmly." But I was done with calm. "Why?" I asked, the word dropping into the room like a stone into still water. Dad looked up from his notebook. "Why what?" "Why did you make Landon CEO behind my back? After everything I've done, everything I've built, why?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Mom busied herself pouring wine, her hands trembling slightly. Dad leaned back in his chair with that expression I'd seen him use with difficult contractors. Patient but immovable. "Kelly, no one questions your contribution," he began carefully. "You've been the operational backbone of this company, but Landon brings something different. Vision, fresh perspective. He connects with the younger team, understands modern branding. He doesn't understand contracts," I interrupted. "He can't read a P&L statement. Last month, he promised a client custom finishes we can't source domestically, adding 3 weeks and $40,000 to the timeline. I fixed it, like I fix everything." "He's learning," Mom interjected softly. "At what cost?" My voice rose despite my intention to stay controlled. "You gave him my company." "It's not your company," Dad said sharply. "It's our family's company. And frankly, Kelly, you were burning out. Working until midnight, skipping vacations, losing perspective. We thought giving you space, letting you step back. You didn't give me space, you replaced me." The words came out harder than I intended. Without discussion, without warning. You wrote me out of my own story. Landon finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "I didn't ask for this, Kel. Dad came to me and said you needed a break, that I could help shoulder the burden, and you said yes." I turned to him. "You took the title, the authority, the office, my office, and didn't think to ask why your sister, the one who's been running this company, was suddenly taking a break she didn't know about?" He looked down at his plate. I thought I could handle it." "You thought wrong." I pulled out my phone and opened an email, sliding it across the table to Dad. "Hawthorne signed with Brenner Group yesterday. $2.3 million contract. Gone." Dad's face went pale. "They'll come back. Once things settle, they won't. I built that relationship over 8 months. They trusted me, not Morgan and Company. Without me, we're just another mid-tier contractor." I stood, reaching for my coat. And now Landon gets to learn that leadership isn't about vision. It's about the 1,000 small decisions that no one sees, the relationships you build at 6 a.m. site meetings, the credibility you earn by being excellent when it's inconvenient. "What do you want?" Dad's voice had an edge of desperation. "You want to see us fail? You want the business your mother and I built from nothing to collapse?" "I want respect," I said quietly. "I want to be valued, and clearly that's not possible with your golden boy playing CEO while I work in the shadows." Mom reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, please." I pulled back. "I spent 7 years proving my worth. I won't spend another 7 begging you to see it." The walk to my car felt longer than it should have. Behind me, the house glowed warm and inviting, full of people who loved me but couldn't value me. And I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. Love without respect is just a pretty cage. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights blur and sharpen. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't read. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't managing a crisis, wasn't solving a problem, wasn't carrying weight that wasn't mine to bear. I was just existing, and it felt like breathing after being underwater. The silence lasted 3 days, then the storm hit. Thursday morning, my phone erupted. 6 missed calls before I'd finished my coffee. Messages from project managers, accountants, even the receptionist, all asking variations of the same question. Where did you put the files? Clint Reynolds, our senior PM, left a voicemail that sounded like barely controlled panic. Kelly, the Baxter Hills specs? Landon says they're gone? The client needs confirmation by 4 p.m. and no one can find the original documentation. Please, if you have copies... I deleted the message. An hour later, Karen from accounting. The budget tracking system isn't syncing with the new project estimates. Landon told me to call you because, quote, Kelly built that thing, she'll know how to fix it. This is urgent. By afternoon, the trickle had become a flood. LinkedIn messages from former colleagues. Emails marked urgent. Even a text from our office manager. Kelly, I don't know what happened, but everyone's asking for you. Are you coming back? I turned off my phone and went for a walk. The park near my apartment was quiet. Kids on swings, dogs chasing frisbees, an old man feeding pigeons from a paper bag. Life continued, indifferent to my crisis. The world didn't stop because my family had imploded. And I realized I didn't want to be the person who made their problems my emergency anymore. When I got home, a new message waited. Dad. Call me, it's urgent. I stared at the words, then typed, what's wrong? The response was immediate. Wexler account, 2.3, they're walking. Said they don't trust Landon's leadership. Kelly, please, we need you. I set the phone down and poured another glass of wine. They needed me, finally. But need isn't the same as value. Over the next week, I watched from a distance as Morgan & Company bled. A third client put their project on hold, pending leadership clarification. 2 senior employees gave notice. Industry contacts started reaching out to me directly, carefully fishing for information about what's happening at Morgan's. I had coffee with Sienna Jacobs, an executive recruiter I'd worked with years ago. She scanned my resume with widening eyes. You're a unicorn, she said bluntly. Technical expertise, leadership experience, proven growth results. Do you know how rare that combination is? Firms would kill to bring you in. My family didn't seem to think so. Sienna's smile was sad. That's the curse of being indispensable to people who think they already know you. Familiarity breeds blindness. The phrase stuck with me. Familiarity breeds blindness. That evening, my mother appeared at my door holding Tupperware. Her famous baked ziti, like carbs could solve betrayal. Hi, sweetheart. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. Your father's struggling. Landon's in over his head. We didn't realize how much you did until you weren't there to do it. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I asked, not moving aside to let her in. No, it's just the truth. She hesitated. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I'm asking, please come back. Help us fix this. Fix what exactly? The company, or the fact that you only value me when I'm useful? She flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I finally stepped aside, letting her into my apartment. You gave Landon everything I earned because you thought he needed a win. You sacrificed my career to fix his ego. And now that it's failing, suddenly I'm important again. Mom set the Tupperware on my counter with shaking hands. What would make it right? Tell me and I'll make it happen. For the first time, I said the thing I'd barely let myself think. Control. Equity. Real power, not the illusion of it. And Landon out of the leadership seat. Her eyes widened. You want to be CEO? No, I said firmly. I want ownership. Decision-making authority. A seat at the table that no one can take away. 35% equity and co-executive structure. That would destroy your father. No, his decision is what's destroying him. I'm offering him a way out. She left without the Tupperware. The next morning, I called Jasmine Patel, a lawyer friend from college. I need you to review something. Company bylaws, ownership structure, CEO appointment resolution. Can you tell me where the leverage points are? Going to war with your family? She asked carefully. No, going to negotiate on equal footing for the first time in my life. While Jasmine worked, an email appeared in my inbox. Westmore Capital Group. They were looking for a director of strategic operations. 6 figures, signing bonus, relocation assistance, full autonomy. The job description could have been written for me. I didn't say yes, but I didn't delete it either. That afternoon, Dad sent a message. Let's meet. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverstone Club, just to talk. No assumptions. I showed up 5 minutes early wearing a new navy suit, not the one I used to wear to Morgan & Company meetings. This one was sharper, more expensive. A statement. The restaurant was elegant and quiet, the kind of place you choose when trying to look composed while everything crumbles. My parents sat at a corner table, Dad rigid, Mom anxious. Landon was there too, which surprised me. Kelly, Dad said with a nod. No hug, no warmth, just business. Good. I preferred it that way. Let's get to it, I said, sitting down. Dad cleared his throat. First, I want to acknowledge that we underestimated your contribution. I thought I was making a decision for the company's long-term health, but I ignored the fact that you were the company's health. I waited. I also assumed you'd never leave, that you'd always be there, pushing through, keeping things running. His voice dropped. I took advantage of that. For that, I apologize. It wasn't a full apology, but it was more than I'd expected. Mom jumped in. We've been discussing options, ways to make this right, but we want to hear from you first. What do you need? I looked at all 3 of them, letting silence stretch. Then I slid a typed document across the table. 35% ownership, executive voting rights, co-CEO structure. Landon handles vision and client-facing work. I handle operations and strategic execution. All major decisions require both signatures. Dad's eyes narrowed. That's significant control. It's what I'm worth. This would give you equal power to protect what I built? Yes, exactly. I leaned forward. Right now, clients don't trust this company because leadership is unstable. You bring me back with clarity and authority, and you don't just stop the bleeding. You rebuild credibility. And if we say no? Mom asked quietly. I walk. Permanently. Westmore Capital has already made an offer, and they're happy to let me bring relationships with me, including Anderson and Wexler. Dad's face went pale. You'd really do that? I'd rather build something from scratch than continue propping up something that devalues me. The silence was heavy. Then Landon spoke. What if I step down as CEO? Everyone turned to him. He shrugged, but his eyes were serious. Let's be honest. I'm drowning. I thought I could handle it, but I've been faking it since day one. The pressure, the decisions, it's not what I thought it would be. His voice cracked slightly. I don't want to be the reason we lose everything. It was the most mature thing I'd ever heard my brother say. Dad looked down at my document again, then back at me. I'll have our attorney draft an agreement. You want it signed before you return? Before I step foot in that building, I confirmed. And your title? Chief Operating Officer, I replied. But functionally, I'm calling the shots alongside Landon. Equal partners. Dad extended his hand across the table. We shook. Not as father and daughter, but as business partners negotiating a deal. One more thing, I added. This agreement is binding. You can't undo it because you get uncomfortable with me having power. If you sign this, you're committing to seeing me as an equal. Understood, Dad said quietly. 10 days later, the papers were signed. 35% equity, co-executive control, legally protected decision-making authority. I didn't return to Morgan & Company as someone who needed a job. I returned as someone who'd proven her worth by walking away and had the courage to set terms for her return. Monday morning, I walked back into Morgan & Company wearing the same navy suit, carrying a leather portfolio, and feeling like I was entering a building I'd built with my bare hands. The staff's reaction was cautious. Rumors had flown during my absence. I'd been fired. I'd quit. I'd started a competing firm. The truth was stranger than any gossip. I called an all-hands meeting at 9 a.m. I'm not here to relitigate the past, I told the assembled team. What happened happened, but I am here to rebuild what we lost and take us somewhere better. If you're with me, let's get to work. Clint, our senior project manager, stood up. We missed you, Kelly. The room exhaled collectively. So did I. Landon and I fell into an unexpected rhythm. He focused on branding, client relations, and creative vision, things he actually enjoyed and excelled at. I handled operations, contracts, and strategic growth. We weren't best friends, but we were finally aligned. 3 weeks after my return, I stayed late working on a client onboarding strategy. At 7:45, the lights clicked off one by one as staff left for the evening. I stood by the window overlooking the city, watching lights flicker to life in the dusk. Everything looked different now. Dad appeared in my doorway. No tie, just a weathered company polo. I watched how you handled the Wexler recovery, he said quietly. You didn't just fix it. You made it better than before. Because I built that relationship over years, I replied. Trust isn't transactional, he nodded slowly. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't say, yes, you should have. He already knew. You see it now, I said instead. That's what matters. 2 months later, we secured a $7.2 million commercial development contract, the largest in company history. The client told me directly, we want to work with whoever saved Morgan & Company from collapse. Funny how things circle back. That evening, I got a text from Mom. Sunday dinner? Just us. No business talk, I promise. I smiled. Maybe we were healing. Sitting on my balcony that night, wine in hand, city glowing below, I reflected on everything. The betrayal, the silence, the walkout, the reckoning, the rise. If I learned anything, it's this. Loyalty means nothing without respect. Family means little without truth. And silence doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it makes you powerful. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop carrying weight that was never yours to bear and wait for people to realize what they lost. Then, and only then, can you decide if they deserve to get it back.